I'm about to hurt your guys' feelings and I apologize in advance, but did you guys know that the cost of living in New York City is 77% higher than the national average? I just know my mom is looking at this video and she's just pulling out her hair, just so mad. She's just like, why don't you move back home? Why don't you just save the money? Type of video about every single year. So I made a what I spend in a week living in New York City around this time last year, and I was shocked by the total and how much I actually ended up spending. And I feel like this is a tradition at this point because I also made that same video 2 years ago at this point as well, and again I was shocked. So every single year I keep making the same video over and over just for like my own research, but to also help you out. And every single year I'm just like floored by how much I spend just on the basic level of living in New York City. I'm about to hurt your guys' feelings and I apologize in advance, but did you guys know that the cost of living in New York City is 77% higher than the national average? Like, we know that New York City is expensive, but did we know that it was like surpassing most of the states in the US? I have my energy drink right here from Alani to give me some inspiration and energy while I do talk through this, because it is kind of overwhelming and nerve-wracking to talk about finances like this. It's kind of taboo still, but again, I want to kind of normalize this type of conversation in this space so this knowledge is like accessible to everyone. We don't gatekeep around here. So if you guys are new to my channel and this is your first ever video, welcome. My name is Mahua. If you guys don't know me, I was born in New York. I'm a New York native. My family and I moved to the suburbs for elementary and high school, and then I moved back to Queens specifically to navigate my 20s in the city. I also went to college in Manhattan, so this is like almost my third official year of living in New York City. I currently live in a studio apartment. This is going to be my third year living here. Before I do get this video started, I just want to give you a disclaimer. I pay for everything on my own. I've never had my parents help with finances and things like that. I'm very proud to say that I am self-made, and it was very hard in the beginning, and it still is very hard to afford life in New York as a 25-year-old. But I don't want you to assume that this was easy for me or that I had, you know, this grand help from my parents. My parents do help me with like giving me food sometimes on hard weeks, but I hope that this gives you like a realistic insight on what it actually is like living in New York City, being self-employed and affording it on your own. Also, it is so goddamn hot here and we're not even into the video yet. Once we actually start talking about the money, that's when we'll actually start sweating. So how I usually structure these videos is I talk about all of the daily expenses that I have throughout the week, and then I talk about my non-negotiables, fixed expenses, bills, and things like that towards the end of the video, so you can kind of get a sense of the typical amount you would probably pay if you do live alone here and you are paying bills and things like that. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe because it helps me so much as a small YouTuber, and you'll get so much information if you are a new resident in New York City, or if you're traveling here, or if you just want fun vlogs from me of just exploring New York City. Also, make sure to follow me on my Instagram and TikTok. It's at labyrinthab. I literally post every single day, so you'll see a lot more short form content if that's more up your alley. But let's get started. So I do want to start off by saying that this week was kind of atypical. I usually do spend more time going into the city to work from a coffee shop and taking the subway, or even going to workout classes, but this week was kind of hectic where I had like adult responsibilities like weddings and just like stress and anxiety that I had to go through on my own. But I hope it still gives you kind of an idea of how much I spend. So on Monday I took the subway into Manhattan. I don't spend too much money on Lyft and Ubers and things like that, especially if I don't need to, because those prices really add up if you do take it constantly. And if the subway is only $2.90, I'm gonna be saving my buck and take the subway when it's like the most convenient for me, you know? And if you guys don't know, you don't really have to get the monthly or weekly Metro cards anymore for the subway, and as long as you use the same card for 12 entries, your next few rides after that are free. I also decided to take a hot yoga class, and I personally don't pay for individual classes. I have a ClassPass membership, which basically is an app that has a bunch of different workout classes within the membership that you pay for. I pay $49 for like 23 credits a month, so that is $12.25 a week. So I was meant to have a good day today. I oiled my hair, was listening to manifestations on the train, reading a good book, had a hot yoga class planned, and then the address for the hot yoga class was wrong, so I was rushing because I was late for it, and so I tripped and people saw me trip, and then I was bleeding from my knees, and then I got to my class and I saw that my knees were literally leaving blood marks on the yoga mat, so I had to go get band-aids. So do I let that ruin my day, or do I just get a sweet treat because I deserve it and forget about it. I decided to get a coffee after that to treat myself, and coffee prices are so wild nowadays. So I paid $5.75 for the coffee plus $1 for tip, which is normal, so total of $6.75. And you know when you are paying for something and then they turn over the iPad for you to tip, but also they're not really doing something for you to tip them? Let me know if this tipping culture is out of hand wherever you live, because personally for coffee, I get it, I'm gonna tip them. Like, I remember I was at a self kiosk where I put in the items that I wanted for my meal and there was still a tip option. I don't know, let me know how you feel about that. And then I came back to Queens, back home, taking the train, and again I paid $2.90. So for Monday's total, I paid $24.80, which is honestly pretty good in my eyes. The next day I stayed at home to do work instead of going outside. I love like stay-at-home days because you save so much money. So that's the perk of like working from home sometimes. The only thing I paid for that day was just like a little Amazon purchase. I needed to buy some mics for my camera and for my phone for recording. So that was only $32.62. So for Wednesday, I was also at home doing work. I did not feel like going outside again. It was just like one of those weeks where I was like very anxious, where I just wanted to like be in my own space and not be bothered by anyone. And I actually had to pay my student loans that day. So thankfully I have my student loans on automatic payments, so I don't have to think about it as much and I don't skip out on payments. I highly recommend that for your bills, your credit card payments, student loans, whatever it is, just so you don't have to pay like a late fee or you forget about it. I personally pay a lot more for my student loans than like the minimum payment. I only do that just because I want to get it over with very quick and not think about it, and I'm very close to paying off all of my student loans. Thankfully I didn't have too much to pay off, so I paid $500 this month for my student loans. The payment goes up and down depending on how much I want to pay, so technically for that week I paid $125 for student loans. On Thursday I went on a little hot girl walk to feel better, to run some errands and just get out of the house. I cut up my knee so hard the other day by falling, so now I have to go buy some Neosporin because it's been a couple of days since I fell and it started bleeding and it still has not healed or scabbed over, so I think it's time to actually get the big guns. My knee was still killing me, so I decided to finally get some like aftercare for my knees and just pick up some different things like groceries and at-home things that I needed from Target. So I paid $51.25 on Thursday. Friday was an unconventional adult day. I had a wedding to go to, and that's how you know you're getting older, where it's just like wedding season after wedding season. So many events to go to for like celebratory things. When I made this video 2 years ago or even last year, I didn't really have any of these events to go to or pay for, so it's just so wild how things like get more and more expensive as you get older. Obviously we all know that. So this wedding was actually in New Jersey. Thankfully my friend drove, so we didn't have to pay for commute or anything like that, but we did have to pay for like the wedding gift and, you know, the hotel that we stayed in to change. So for my wedding gift I gave $150. Let me know how much you guys pay for a wedding gift, if you are by yourself paying or if you're giving as a couple, because I feel like I'm at that age where I'm going to a lot of weddings and engagement parties, but I never know how much to give as a gift. So let me know what your preference is. So we all got a hotel room to just chill in and change in for like the reception later on that night. We all split it, so we paid $26.56. I also paid rent that day. We'll talk about that in a few minutes later on in the video because that was a hefty payment. So Friday's total, I paid $175.56. So on Saturday we did some more groceries, wanted to make some pad thai. We went to like the Asian store and got some veggies and noodles and things like that. So we got $34.68 worth of stuff. I personally am not like a party girl. I don't really go out to bars and things like that. So that's why I don't have any expenses really for like drinking alcohol. If you guys do that, you're probably gonna have to add in like a hefty amount because drinks in New York are pretty expensive. I do go out to dinners and lunches and, you know, hangouts with friends, but this week I didn't really do much of that. But if you guys do want like a more realistic take on going out and lunches and dinners and how much that is usually, make sure to watch my vlogs and like my other what I spend in a week videos to get more of an idea on that. As you can see, like as I'm getting older and older and as I'm making these videos, I'm just becoming more of like a homebody and spending my time in more like intimate, wholesome ways, you know. On Sunday, it was actually Mother's Day. I decided to take my mom out. We went to like Little Island. Happy Mother's Day. My mom is yet again in a simple fit in her royalty and long maxi dress, and now we are currently at Little Island. Quick rotation, more quicker. To get from lower Manhattan to more like upper Manhattan, I got a Lyft car instead of taking the subway, and I only paid $21.24. And then we took the subway back home and I paid $2.90. Thankfully, I had other people to help me pay for that day, so it wasn't just me. Usually as the oldest daughter, I am paying for everything, but I had some help, thankfully. So the total for Sunday was $24.14. Honestly, I'm low-key proud of myself for unintentionally doing well this week with expenses and kind of budgeting, I guess. Again, this was kind of like an untraditional week for me. On the reg, I would take more classes or working out or go out more for coffee and like working in Manhattan or go out for dinners and things like that. But this week was pretty mild. Now let's move on to the fixed expenses, the non-negotiables, the things that you have to pay for every month regardless of anything that you're going through, right? So this includes rent, Wi-Fi, bills, subscriptions, and things like that. So first let's talk about Wi-Fi, phone bill, electric bill. Something that I didn't really know of when I first moved out to New York City was that you can't really pick the most affordable Wi-Fi for the most part. For example, for my area, you can only pick Spectrum. That was the only choice I had when I moved here. So my Spectrum Wi-Fi bill is about $87 a month. My electric bill from Con Edison, it kind of like goes up and down every single month, so it might be higher during the summer months when you do use more AC. So I would say that it goes around like $65 to $80 a month. And for phone bill, it's a little bit higher for me considering I pay for, not just me, I pay for a bunch of people in my family. It's $319. So the total for that is $417, but if we divide that by 4 to get a weekly amount, it's about $117.86. All right, the next part, let's talk about subscription. This is where they get you, okay? You know when you like subscribe to something and you don't even realize that you're subscribed to it, and then like 10 years later you just see those payments on your credit card and it's just like a bunch of different subscriptions that like you forgot to cancel. So really make sure that you have all your subscriptions organized, because for the most part a lot of them are useless and not needed. So when I talk about subscriptions, it's gonna be like my Spotify, Google Storage, Epidemic Sound, which is like the YouTube sounds that I use on these videos. I provide scholarships for kids in Bangladesh. I have a subscription for that. My PO box for my business. I'm gonna say that this all adds up to about $80. I'm gonna divide that by 4 to get the weekly amount. That's $20 a week. All right, now let's get to the bulk of the payments. Rent. Something went wrong this month. My rent is usually $17.50, but there was a service fee for one of the cards that I use, so it went up $50. So this month I paid $18,000. Oh my god. This month I paid $1,806 for my rent, living in a studio in Queens. I know it sounds outrageous, and it is, because it's a studio apartment and I'm just a gal paying it, but this is kind of the average and normal price of these type of places in New York City. It's a lot more expensive in Manhattan, so at least in Queens I'm paying a cheaper price, even though it is outrageous and crazy. If you divide that by 4, I'm paying about $451 every single week to just live in my apartment in New York City. But I must say, at least I don't have to pay for heat and water, because that's included in my rent. Those are the things I like say to myself to convince myself that this is perfectly fine. Because I can't just complain every single day, then I'm gonna just be miserable, right? Might as well try to be more positive about it and have a good living experience in New York. So the total of my fixed prices, my non-negotiables every single week is, let's add it up together, it's $589.48. Those are my non-negotiables, things that I have to pay here without my daily and weekly expenses. And the total of what I spend in a week, with all of the fun things that I add on top of that, like my workout classes, my groceries that are fun but really a necessity, my coffee, commute, and things like that, is oof. So my total spending for the week is $1,057.53. You let me know, is that a fair price for just one person living in New York City for just the week? Or is it kind of outrageous? I just know my mom is looking at this video and she's just like pulling out her hair, just so mad, because whenever she sees videos like this from me, she's just like, why don't you move back home? Why don't you just save the money? And it's just like, parents don't get it. You want to live in New York City and just like live that experience and live on your own and just like make the mistakes by yourself and be independent. Like, there's no city like this anywhere else. And I'm very nosy, so I personally love videos like this. So let me know if this was helpful for you, and if you guys did get more of an insight into my life and just like how much it is to live in New York City and just navigate life here in your 20s. I feel like personally $1,000+ a week living in New York City is outrageous, and it's very crazy, and it can give you a heart attack, right? I feel like I've grown a lot personally because, you know, 2 years ago when I made this video, a year ago when I made this video, it was very scary scary for me to just talk about money like this, but also second, to be spending money. You know, I grew up with a lot of scarcity mindset, and it wasn't really encouraged to spend this much money on yourself. It's kind of seen as selfish. I was taught, you know, by my immigrant parents to just save up and invest in my future and buy a home one day and not live alone. So it brings me a lot of anxiety to spend a lot of money on myself. But I feel like I'm growing out of that mindset, thankfully, and I'm thinking more abundantly, where I'm learning that spending this money on myself is an investment in myself. And yes, it is a lot of money, but it's not about let me cut out these expenses to afford something that I want, to afford life in New York City. The abundance mindset is actually, how can I work harder to afford the thing I want and get more in return? So I feel like, yes, this is very anxiety inducing to see how much money I do spend, but now in the season of life that I'm in and in the growth that I've had, I'm kind of just like, okay, how can I make more now as a self-employed individual and work harder on my passions and in my endeavors to afford life here and be happy here, you know? So I feel like that's a really good like growth mindset to have. And if you are watching this video, this might seem scary to you. It might seem like an outrageous amount, but I hope you get to that point where you feel a little bit more comfortable and you feel like it is pushing you to be a better version of yourself, because it definitely did for me. This video 2 years ago was incredibly hard for me to make, and I was struggling living here. I was even struggling living here last year. Even this time around, it's hard for me to live here sometimes because I have so many different things that I have to pay attention to and work on to just like afford it, right? But I feel like it's gotten so much easier over the years, and I just know this time next year when I do make this video again, hopefully, I'm gonna be in a better place. So I hope that little pep talk was worth it and you guys feel a little bit more at ease. I definitely do feel a little bit better about everything after talking to you guys about it. But I hope this video was helpful. I hope it also gives you like a realistic take on life in New York City, you know? I afford the studio by myself and I choose to do a lot of these things alone, which is a huge privilege, but you can make it a lot easier by getting roommates or living in a more affordable area. But if you guys found this video helpful, please make sure to like and subscribe, because again, it helps me so much, and this video will be pushed out into an audience for the people that actually really need that little nudge to make their move here. You guys can also follow me on my Instagram and TikTok if you'd like to get more of like the inside scoop of things like this more on the daily. I also have a podcast with my partner called Difficult-ish, where we post every single week, sometimes even twice a week. We're just like besties, just talking for an hour straight. You guys will love it. It's on YouTube and all streaming platforms, so you can watch or listen. I also have a collection coming out next month, and you can check that out on labyrinthav.com, where you can shop my art and apparel or just simply browse. That's fine too. But I love you guys so very much, and I will see you next week. Bye.